In college football, nothing beats defeating your arch rival. But there's one thing that's even better, and that's stealing their top recruit.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. Please check out my work there. On today's episode, we have an episode deep in recruiting news. First, we're going to talk about a potential flip candidate out of New Jersey. Then we'll get to a commit that BC landed on Wednesday. And finally, we're going to get into the official visit weekend, the last of June. We'll tell you who's going to be on campus and what our thoughts are on that, all in a jam-packed episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day. Now, if you were to ask me this morning if I was going to do a show, I was going to say, yeah, I talk about Ashton Cunningham, the new commitment out of Oklahoma, and I'd get into all of that. That would have been the basis of my show. But around 2 o'clock, I go on my Twitter account, and I'm looking, and there's a news item out about a safety, Marcus Upton, out of Timber Creek, New Jersey, decommitting from Syracuse. That stuff happens. But I'm looking at the name, and I'm going, he just followed me a couple weeks ago. What's up with that? I'm like looking around, do a little digging, see if there's anything that maybe connects him to BC. He's a New Jersey guy, right? Notice all the coaching staff follows him. Notice BC offered him back around the same time Syracuse did. So I reach out to some of my people. I have my connections. I am not just a Twitter sleuth. I have connections in the world. I talk to my Syracuse people. I talk to some BC people. And there's more smoke to the fire than just he decommitted. And that there's connections there to Boston College. And I'm looking and I'm digging and I'm digging and I'm like, And I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a chance. I get some good news, good signs that there's a real connection there. But it gets to the next level. When I talk to Brian Doan, who is my cohort at 247, he's a national analyst. He's a guy who does recruiting for a full-time job. That's all he does is cover for recruiting. He said, AJ, I'm putting a crystal ball in for him to land at BC. I'm like, Marcus Upton? He's like, yeah. He's taking an official visit to BC this weekend. So that is very interesting. When Brian Doan makes a crystal ball prediction, that usually you can take to the bank. So BC could be in good shape to steal a ACC commitment from their rivals. And it's not just that they're stealing a commitment. Marcus Upton is Syracuse's top-ranked recruit, according to 247 Sports. So Boston College, a team that just 3 weeks ago, many folks were looking at that recruiting class and going, what's Bill O'Brien doing? Why is this class still kind of just middling and there's nothing really special about it? They're about to go to Syracuse and steal their arch rival's best recruit from Fran Brown, the one that the media falls all over themselves, loving his recruiting style. AJ, he is great. He is going to out-recruit everybody in that area and get Syracuse back on that map because that's what Fran Brown's going to do. And, Bill O'Brien doesn't have a chance because Fran Brown is the nation's former number one recruiter when he was with Georgia. He's going to bring that to Syracuse. Look at the names he's bringing up there. And all of this. To hear that and then go to months later to, Fran Brown has a few big names coming up. He had a few that he ended the 2024 class with, and he has a few for the 2026 class. But Bill O'Brien is basically punching him in the mouth here by taking his top recruit. This is a big deal. Syracuse, if you go to their 247 sites and they're doing their reporting, they're talking to the right people. I'm not saying they're not doing that. They're saying they've been told it was because Marcus Upton is not they've got other guys, so he got dropped. Yeah, the top recruit that you had in your class was dropped. And that's not what I heard from my sources. To me, this strikes much more likely than in college football when a committed player shows interest in another school and or sets up an official visit or takes an official visit, that other school will drop them. That's more likely what I think would happen. Jeff Halfley did it a bunch. I heard it from the staff when he was here that happened. And that was kind of the way things worked. So why would the school say that? It's for it's all on optics. You can't be Fran Brown, this guy that is supposed to be the best recruiter and everything, and losing to BC, your top recruit. It's a hard sell to your recruits. It's a hard sell to your players, to your NIL clubs, to your boosters, to your fans, to everybody to say that. It is so much easier to say, you know what, we let him drop because we have other defensive backs that are better than him. What? It's the middle of the offseason. How would you even have that? Doesn't make any sense. No, that's not what happened. Clearly Upton showed interest in BC. And whether he scheduled the visit and got dropped or talked to them and told them he's going to take the visit and got dropped, whatever the logistics here is, that is most likely what happened. Okay? And Fran Brown, to make sure that he doesn't look like a fool because Bill O'Brien is taking his breakfast from him, has his staff say the other thing. And I'm not knocking Fran Brown for saying that. As I said, Halfley used to say it all the time. It's an optics thing. But for Boston College, this is showing Bill O'Brien is got the chops to go up against Fran Brown. That Bill O'Brien has the chops to put together a good recruiting class. Because if I went in and put my numbers together in my brain right now of the names that I know are either silently committed and haven't announced yet, and I can't tell you guys the names of them yet, and a few that I think are still going to commit, BC is basically a top 25 recruiting class. And I don't expect that to stay that way when it gets to National Signing Day. There'll be, I'm sure that I think it was Michigan that's like 50 right now. Of course they're going to get higher than BC. But it's a heck of a lot better than the 93rd or whatever they were last year. And I know numbers are different, but I think BC is doing an excellent job recruiting right now, given that they've only been there on that staff for 3-4 months at this point. It's hard to recruit when you've just started, your job and you don't have the relationships that you used to have, that the other staff had. I think that's a big deal. But to have a staff in place that can go and do the icky things like going one-on-one against other schools. In the past week, BC has potentially stolen a recruit from Syracuse. It has not been officially announced yet. It's just crystal balled at this point. And stolen a recruit from Utah. That is a world of difference for Boston College. It changes the optics, as we talked about Fran Brown and his optics. It changed the optics for Boston College as well, too, because you have your two biggest recruiting stories in the past 3 days with Shaker Razig and potentially Marcus Upton committing to BC. That is that gets you some good momentum. You haven't played on the field, but what has people said about Bill O'Brien this whole time is that they trust him on the field. We just want to see how he recruits. You're starting to see how he recruits, and it's starting to look good. It's starting to show you this is a complete package here for Boston College. While Fran Brown, he was he's a positional coach. We just watched what Jeff Halfley did there. You're getting a guy who's experienced and is showing you he can recruit too. This is a bright future for BC right now. It feels good. It's getting you the momentum you need before you take on FSU in that first game. I'm not saying they're going to beat FSU, but I think BC's in a lot better position than a lot of these analysts are putting them. And rebuilding year, my butt. I don't think this is anything like that. We'll get into more about that later in the summer, but I want to say right now, this Marcus Upton news is very encouraging for Boston College. We'll get into more about recruiting in a moment. We talk about Ashton Cunningham, a commitment that came in on Wednesday. You want to hear about him in just a moment. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And for eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. I was talking about the new potential news with Marcus Upton. And one piece that I didn't bring up, and I wanted to make sure I got to it in this episode because it's important. I'm talking about Fran Brown versus Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien versus a lot of other coaches. Is I'm looking at recruiting pitches. What is it about Bill O'Brien that he can sell about BC that's resonating with recruits versus other schools? Now, as someone who covers recruiting, I see what other schools do. I just saw Tommy Rupley posting a picture of him sitting in a car on like the 50-yard line at Duke. I see Louisville people doing it all the time. While BC, they're selling to recruits their NFL experience, the ability to get you to the NFL, your career past being a football player, getting you a connection in Boston, connections in the Boston college community, making you a well-rounded citizen, like with community service, all that stuff melded with NIL. I have to think that kind of pitch will resonate a lot with recruits that have their head on straight, that are the guys that you want in the first place at Boston College versus a guy that gets to go sit in a car, which I don't know what that does. Like, yeah, you got a car. You know, McGovern gives kids cars at BC anyways. Like, who cares? Like, BC is giving you a rich, full understanding of what you're getting at BC. If other schools are selling you, you get to get a car and play for a school that gives you money, you're going to get your fair share of recruits. I'm not saying that's not going to work. I'm saying that in the end, a lot of kids are going to listen to what Bill O'Brien has to say. They're going to listen to that pitch because for the kids and the families that understand the importance of this, they know it's going to resonate, that you can stay in Boston and you can get a job that's going to pay you six figures, even if you don't get into the NFL. And if you want to get in the NFL, there's plenty of guys there that'll help you get there. I feel like that's much more important than going on a car ride with your positional coach or running through a simulated entrance thing that they did. I saw on Syracuse's thing or whatever the heck that is. I think for some programs, they have their way and their style. And to me, from my perspective, a lot of it is very shallow and just kind of gets to the instinctual parts of kids. But what BC is doing is getting a more full-bodied approach to recruiting kids too. And I think that's going to resonate. And when you start winning and add that in, it's going to be it's a good formula for recruiting at a school like Boston College. That's all I'm saying. So let's get into a commitment that did happen, and that is Ashton Cunningham, a defensive back from Union, Oklahoma. Now, if you heard the name Union, Oklahoma, you would have heard it in the last two episodes because I was talking about Shaker Razig, who is Ashton Cunningham's teammate. Now, Ashton Cunningham is a 5'11" defensive back. He's an athlete, but he got recruited as a defensive back. We'll get into a whole other episode on BC's rush on defensive backs later on after everything settles down. But Cunningham, what is it about him? He doesn't have a rating yet on 247. He doesn't have any Power 5 offers. He has offers from like UTSA, Kent State, North Texas. I think it was like UNLV. He's got some, group of 5 offers. But what he has in spades is speed. According to the kid, he runs a 4.34 40. He is clocked in as a sub 11 100-yard dash and comparatively the same for a 200-yard dash. So this again gives you another speedy defensive back from a state that good defensive backs and good players come from in Oklahoma. Again, get credit to Ray Brown, the defensive back coach who's doing a lot of this work. He gives you speed. He's going to be probably a cornerback, I have to imagine. And he's not a big physical cornerback. He's not going to be like an Elijah Jones who's at like 6'1", bigger dude. He's going to be a smaller one. When I look at his size, it reminds me a lot of when Hamp Cheevers was recruited. Hamp Cheevers was recruited out of, I think it was Florida. And he was like 5'10", 150 pounds soaking wet when he got here. And look at what he ended up being. He wasn't an NFL defensive back, but I think he led the country in interceptions one year, I believe. Good. That ended up working okay. But you, even with that size, you're getting more speed than you would have with Cheevers. So that's a good thing. That's something you can use to line up against defensive backs, wide receivers, to good speedy wide receivers. Love this. I love this one. It's more of an under the radar, diamond in the rough type of commitment, but still, it's a good one. He clearly has a connection with Shake, the quarterback that's going to be at BC, and credit again to Ray Brown and that staff for bringing him in. Now, as I've said before, there's, I believe, 4 more commitments that have not even been announced yet. BC's getting up there. And just to as a reminder, the class does not cap at 25. Like if BC has a bunch of kids that they really want and they can fit it into the group, it just has to keep the school under 85 or 85 and under for total commitments. I have not looked at the numbers, and honestly, it would be an exercise in futility because there's going to be kids that graduate. There's going to be kids that transfer out. There's going to be kids that, maybe have like one more year of eligibility, but they've graduated. That maybe Bill O'Brien is like, maybe it's best for you to find another program. That's something that happens everywhere. I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. I do know that there's potentially a lot of change that could happen in that defensive backfield. Um, I mean, I just look like right off the bat, like Breakweets Brown, I think this is last year. Kari Johnson, I believe he has this is his last year. Victor Nelson, I believe that's his last year. So the reason why they could be going for a lot of these defensive backs is there could be a lot of change in that secondary. And I don't think they're done. As many defensive backs as we brought up, Marcellus Townsend, Amari and Davis, Ray Sykes, obviously, Ashton Cunningham, DJ Green. I still think there's potentially more. I mean, I just brought up Marcus Upton. He's a defensive back. So they're looking for a very, very big defensive back class. And I think that's an interesting thing that we'll talk about in a whole other episode because I think it kind of shows you where the staff is looking at either in the lack of depth or that they need a certain thing that the roster doesn't have. We'll get into that in another episode. Now, in our final segment, final official visit weekend of the big June block. I'll tell you who's coming on campus. We'll look at some of the names and who I got excited about when I saw he was coming. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black. Again, I said, come on over to Eagle Insider. I know some of you have not. I have not become a subscriber yet, but I would love to see you come and join us. It is, just take a month right now. See what we have to offer. Become a subscriber. If you like it, become a yearly subscriber. If you do a subscription right now, I believe by the end of the year, you would get Paramount Plus added on, which is a great deal if you want to watch the new Criminal Minds. But there's more going on there too. But come on over, become a subscriber. It's the greatest way to show your support for my work is to become a subscriber on Eagle Insider. We have a ton going on over there. We have the crystal balls coming up. I'll probably throw one in for Upton myself when I'm done with this episode. But come on over. So final week. BC has 9 players coming on campus this weekend. And as I said, Marcus Upton is one of them. They also have 3 committed players that we know about that are coming, which is TJ Green, defensive back from Reynoldsburg, Ohio, Nolan James, running back from DePaul Catholic in New Jersey, and Griffin Collins, who had a great tweet talking about how excited he is for the future of this program. He's a linebacker from Worcester Academy. You have those 3 coming on. The name that really, really excites me, and I don't know who on 247 changed it because I didn't, is wide receiver Ja'Cory Watson, who is rated an 88 in the 66 wide receiver in the class. He's from Shadow Creek, Texas. He's visited Baylor and Houston, and I've been waiting for him to get to BC because He strikes me as a guy that Darrell Wyatt is going to get here. And if you bring him in with Nedrick Bolden and Samaj Fleming and potentially one more other one that we do not have announced yet, you have a really strong wide receiver group coming in. Watson probably being the top of the group, but that is one name I'm really excited to see, Ja'Cory Watson. Another name that I'm really excited to see on campus is Cole, Qual. I don't know how to say his name. From Dayton, Ohio. He's a 6'6", 260 offensive tackle. He's taken official visits to Purdue, and I think he had one other one. Yeah, he did, Kent State. He's a late riser, and he's been at a bunch of camps. I think he was at Michigan State this last week. He's a guy that I think is going to blow up if BC can get him before he blows up. And BC has only one commitment, but as I said, I expect more there. Read between my lines if you know what I mean. I know BC wants 4 or 5, so Qual would be a great one to add to that. Now, the other position that I've been waiting for more news on, and one I don't have silence that I'm waiting for, is the edge position. They have in right now Israel Oladipo, but this weekend they have Cole Cogshell, which is one of my favorite names, I think, in college football. And I want him just because his name is Cole Cogshell. Cole Cogshell is from Pasadena, California. He's an 87. He's taken some group of 5 visits, 6'3", 240. Interested to see what he brings in. Charleston Colton, a defensive back from Illinois, is also coming in. I'm really interested to see what happens there because I don't know how many defensive back spots they have left. Like, if you're planning on taking Upton, who's going to be a safety, do you have more room for Colden? Especially if there's another name that pops, we'll see what goes there. And then the final one, which was a surprise to me, there's actually a kicker coming that was at Wisconsin last weekend. He was apparently the top kicker in the country. I don't know who rates that, Kohl's or something like that. I don't know if that's the same as the retailer, but Kohl's rates them. But the other name that I'm watching for is Bod Payne Miller, a 6'4" wide receiver who apparently runs a sub 4.4 40. I saw somewhere. I was like, oh, interesting. He had an offer from Northwestern. I'm like, you get Ja'Cory Watson. Maybe he's a flyer. Until I saw on Monday that he got offered by Ohio State. So clearly there's a lot there. I don't know. Again, just like with cornerbacks, I don't know how much space BC has for this class and how many wide receivers they could take. But if Watson wants to get taken and Miller wants to come in, I don't even know if Miller makes it. Like, maybe that Ohio State offer is enough to make him not take his official visit. That could easily happen. That could be the case. But he's a kid from Ontario. But huge size with speed, like, sign me up. Like, he'd be a nice change of pace wide receiver for that group. Almost reminds me a little bit of the kid they had from Texas Tech that just transferred over. But that's the case here. So that's going to wrap up our episode. This is our 4th episode. As I said, it's summer weeks, and I'm only allowed to do 3, and I usually do it to recharge. But man, folks, when news is popping like this, I can't help myself. I have to get in here. I got to talk about it. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the craziness about this recruiting week. If you do, give us a 5-star review, subscribe to our channel, get over to YouTube and find Locked On BC and subscribe, because it does help us a lot. And follow us on Twitter at AJBlack247 or Locked On BC. And I want to tell you, if you like our podcast, check out Locked On Celtics as well. With the Celtics winning the national championship, the NBA championship, John Corrales is doing a hell of a job recapping everything. If you're a Celtics fan and you have not checked out Locked On Celtics, you have to, especially right now. It's jam-packed with great episodes as he breaks down a historic win for the C's. So check that out as well. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.